Medical Report. Urgent things happen. This is live radio. Dr. Jonathan Gray, of course, beforeus.com. He was to be on today, but he's got an urgent matter. He will be on next Wednesday. So we're going to do open lines, which makes this really interesting. As I say, open lines basically means we're going to talk about nutraceuticals, wellness, technologies. We're going to talk about anti-aging, spiritual issues, any topic, any issue. No ad hominem attacks, please. You will not get on the air. You must, in specific detail, give the board op, Lance, today on Wednesdays, your specific question, 800-259-5791. By the way, we take calls worldwide. If it's in North America, your call will be free. If it's otherwise, you're going to have to pay a long-distance charge to get to our 800 number, 800-259-5791. You can raise a question on any issue on Earth, whether it's geopolitical, metallurgical, biochemical, metabolic, marine ecology, astrophysics, geology. Anything you want to talk about is open lines, and you can bring out issues of research. You can raise things. I'm willing to be learned to teach. As I say, I learned an important question and statement from my father that said, if I can know what you know and what I know, I'll know more than you, which is why the most important thing we tell people on the show here is don't believe anything that I or anybody else says, despite the fact that some people think that because I talk too much and too fast and too technical, I act as a narcissist, which isn't the truth. The fact is, I want to ask a million questions, and I have a million answers because I've been doing this so long, and as a result, if you make statements that are harmful to my listening audience or harmful to yourself or stupid, it's going to get ugly. And I treat people with great love and respect, but I treat stupidity, arrogance, and ignorance with great violence. And I think it's different than any other broadcaster in this or any other network because I care about you out there. You're part of our Nutrimedical family, and we will be here for you to help shepherd you through wellness. As I say, I'm a sheepdog for God. But we will not tolerate lies. We won't tolerate stupidity, arrogance, or ignorance, or people with pseudo-intellectual stances, or those who want to do ad hominem attacks and think that by being an attacker of a person, i.e. me or anyone else, that they're accomplishing a goal. No, we don't tolerate that. We want you to put forward ideas that make sense. Now, in terms of what's going on in the news now, and I want to first touch on what's happening with things like Fukushima Daiichi. This is a major issue that needs to be continually refurbished. And I was on the Red Pill Reports earlier this week at 9 a.m. Pacific time on Monday with J.D. Moore, who used to be a co-broadcaster with Joyce Riley here on the Power Hour for several years, I believe, here in Genesis Network. He has a great show. And J.D. Moore, he'll be periodically on the program as well, and I'm going to be periodically over there doing updates. TEPCO, the robot, dies in a reactor, and there were at least 50 sieverts per hour. I mean, they should have known that was going to happen. And, of course, he did this on purpose to make sure that they proved to everybody they were incompetent. At the same time, the quarterly profits for the past 4 years in TEPCO, which is an umbrella corporation, which primarily contracts primarily U.S. companies and some Japanese, but mainly U.S. companies to supply all the various needs under this umbrella corporation of TEPCO, which supplies power across Japan. Most of these reactors are American-designed or designed under contract from America, including Mitsubishi Heavy Industries, that built them in Japan and shipped them. We have a caller. Oh, boy. Your name and the question you're raising. Your first name is?
David.
David, and you're from California, which is the Golden State. Tell us about what's your question or issue.
Well, my daughter-in-law had a problem with her breastfeeding, and I said, well, let's take some Super Silver 100 for it. And so she told her doctor about it, and the doctor told her it wouldn't do her any good for this problem because it will be destroyed by the acid in her stomach. And I really didn't know what to say, but I know it's not true.
Well, the doctor is an unqualified, ignorant person. Most doctors, or what they call GPs, are generally pathetic. They couldn't pass first-year chemistry, let alone organic chemistry, and they certainly don't know anything about ionic chemical complexes that will pass through the splanchnic circulation of the lower bowel or through your membranes of your nose or mouth, or topically on the breast to go through and reverse mastitis. So I'm certain as she took it, it probably helped dramatically improving her mastitis, which is both probably opportunistic bacterial and fungal or yeast. and her mastitis probably improved dramatically, right?
Yes, it's gone.
Right. And now, people need to understand how simple this treatment is. The conventional doctors might give an antibiotic if they have a quote of bacterial mastitis, but how many of these doctors have done a needle biopsy and aspirated an abscess from the breast and actually plated it out on a blood agar plate or regular plate, done the Burgess manual for metabolic and morphogenic analysis of the subtype of bacteria so they know exactly what it is, and determine it's not just a bacteria, but it's yeast, and it may be even nanobacteria or fungi as well growing there. Many I call pathogen soup. And so mastitis basically is like any body cavity. If you close off any body cavity, including the bowel wall, the eustachian tube in the middle ear, the crypts of the tonsil crypts or the adenoid glands, you're going to get behind an obstruction infection. It's always waiting to happen. So any obstructed body cavity or tube will get infected behind it because there's opportunistic bacteria, including in every organ of your body. If people say your blood is sterile, I tell them, and I ask this question to medical students or precepting residents that would come to my office in Denver, because I was a medical preceptor and professor. And when they come by, I'd say, is your blood sterile? I always ask what I call what appears to be stupid question by the clinical clinician in the practice, which is obviously not on the site of the university, but on his own clinical practice in downtown Denver. And they say, oh, of course it's sterile. I said, really? And of course I knew I had them in a trap. It's almost like a mouse with their tail caught in a trap. And the more they struggle, the more it hurts because the tail's not coming off easy.
Yeah.
And you can imagine how embarrassing this is for these young men, because what I try to teach them is I want to teach them that their brain is not just to keep their hairline falling over their eyes. It's actually to not just hold up the top of their skull. It's actually to be utilized. The problem is, you see, we don't have an education system like the ancient Greeks where you don't pass a multiple guess questionnaire online or offline to determine if you have mastered the knowledge. You have to master it by showing you actually have an interactive intellect to analyze things by inductive and deductive logic, observation, and scientific method to determine whether or not what you think you knew actually is the truth. And the problem is we don't teach people either in school, university, or medical school how to think. They are not taught how to think. I used to teach students and university students when I'd actually teach them, is that I teach them how to think, and I take D and failing students and turn them into A students by simply training them that they actually could learn how to use their brain. So when I hear comments by what I call the magnificent deities, the doctors, or it should be called MBs or medical bullies, they will bully you in telling you that you think you know something. I recently talked to an IOMT doctor who was actually a fellow. I won't mention his name. And he tried to tell me that acetylmethionine, which is in our sachets, is bad because if you take it in your mouth, it's going to bind to the free mercury vapor and cause mercury poisoning, which is total hogwash. The mercury vapor gets bound by toxigenic bacteria in your gut that actually convert to a toxin to methylmercury. It cannot be converted by adding Cimethyl. Cimethyl helps your liver get rid of it by putting the mercury into your bile, and then your bile removes it in the stool. So when we have unqualified people making statements that are illogical, it's not good. And so when you see the wellness condition treatment protocols, I integrate the best of medicine, because there are things in medicine that are good. For example, if someone needs temporarily an ACE inhibitor, I don't recommend an ACE inhibitor, I recommend an ACE receptor blocker. If they need a beta blocker, I recommend Coreg or something that's cardioselective. If they need a diuretic, they use a very weak one like hydrochlorothiazide. And if they need stronger diuretics, they have to remember these are going to cause massive mineral loss, like decalcification of their bones and enamel of their teeth. And the problem is everything like steroids is immediately going to destroy your joint cartilage, like non-steroidal anti-inflammatories, immediately stop the generation of collagen and elastin. So you take somebody, put them on steroids, they're going to get an expanding aortic aneurysm. And if you put them on blood thinners like Coumadin, their arteries will light up like fluorescent bulbs because they're going to calcify. That's a fact, and it's been known by the medical profession for 4 to 5 decades. Stay right there. I'll be back in a second.
Thank you.
Again, your first name, you're here in California, and you're dealing with obstetrician that did I think a C-section 2 months ago in your daughter. She developed mastitis. The Silver 100s work wonderfully. And yet he still denies the fact that, in fact, right in front of his eyes, she has improved without the use of toxic drugs and without medical complications ending up on a PICC line and IV antibiotics in a hospital. you ask the question. What's your first name again?
David.
David, here's how you train them. Real simple, and I tell people this. People know and they can feel the love that I have for people out there. I'm willing to put myself and my career and my intellect on the line for people every day to tell them the truth, whether they like it or not. Sometimes I talk over my guests. Sometimes I talk real fast and too technical. But the fact is, I do know better than most of my guests, even I have on the program. Now, that's not to be boastful, whatever. The fact is, when someone gets a lot of time to talk, like Harley Schlanger or Jonathan Gray, it's because they have something to say. When someone introduces a topic, like on Monday, and I have to do teaching, and 98% of the talking is me, is because I'm trying to teach something, and they need to be quiet and listen and take it in. Now, your doctor friend, the best way to deal with him or a relative, and this is whether it's vaccines, remember, the vaccine courts in Britain now, UK, have just made a decision to give $90 million to vaccine-injured parents of vaccine-injured children in Britain. Now, here we have the vaccine court that protects the vaccine manufacturers. So although they could theoretically make safe vaccines, which I can actually tell you technically how we can do that, using monoclonal antibodies and special clone what's called granulocytes against specific tumors or pathogens. I know how to make it. I could actually tell a biotech company how to do this right now with no adjuvants, no toxins, and no genetic insertion into your cells. What they're doing, and this is the way to deal with your relatives, friends, or doctors, is real simple. You ask them number one of two things. You have an option. Now, option number one is, doctor or relative, here's the phone number to call Dr. Deagle 888 line. And if I would prefer, you should tell him, can I get your number and a time window when Dr. Deagle can call you? It's much better to do option number two. Because if I can get Dr. XYZ, which I do all the time, or relatives, and I can get a phone number where I can call them because they're often resistant. I just had a consult yesterday where I have a very resistant person who basically by neglect and listening to his doctors is going to die. Now, if he listens to me, he may not be perfectly cured, but he's got a lot more chance that I will get him to the right doctors, the right clinics, the right nutraceuticals, and even the right recommendations for the right drugs. Remember, I integrate the best of nutrition and medicine. I can tell him which imaging tests, I can tell him what clinics anywhere in the world, and if I don't know, I can research at my own cost. And basically, although I will tell them I'll charge $150 per half hour, I have not charged anybody since 2008 for a consult. All I tell them is to buy one bottle of anything, and I'll provide them a consult to tell them what they need to do. Now, ideally, if you have real complex problems, you need to get a QRMA machine or an ADLRIS or functional medicine blood tests, urine, stool, genetic tests, and I will integrate the full whole and tell you. But all you need to do is basically say to doctor friend, can I have your number, and can Dr. Deagle call you, and what's the time window? Believe me, he will shrink into he'll get what we call the amazing shrinking doctor. You'll see him shrink and say, well, maybe that's not a good idea. Maybe it actually is working. You'd be surprised how many knucklehead doctors and resistant relatives will suddenly become cooperative and compliant when you threaten the ultimate weapon, which is me calling them on their time, on my dime, telling them what for, that they really don't know what the hell they know.
Yes, that's
now, people
true.
might find that offensive, but you know what I tell people? If you find it offensive, turn off the radio, walk away ignorant, and suffer. Because I'm here for you out there. And now I'm not like any other broadcaster on this or any other network. I'm here 100% to tell the truth and to find the truth. I don't know everything, but as I say, ask better questions. When you see this kind of situation, whether it's, for example, paint by number chemo, and here where I live in California, I don't want a license in the state. I just provide free help to people anywhere. Because here in this state, if I provided anything other than cut, radiation, proton therapy, or paint by numbers chemotherapy, they can not only remove your license, they can put you in jail. Because the medical mafia, and that's what it is, doesn't want a cure for diabetes or peripheral neuropathy or optic neuritis or multiple sclerosis or autoimmune disease or stealth pathogens. No. And it's okay, it's toxic to have aluminum, but by the way, the new Gardasil vaccine has more than double the amount of aluminum biotoxins present in the vaccine, and they are standards we call placebo for the vaccine. When the drug company did the test, was a highly laced aluminum neurotoxic placebo. So they say, not significantly different than the placebo. What do you think happened? They, of course, the fatal drugs allowed people approved it. So as a result, people are getting toxic exposures all the time and building up brain biotoxins and blood vessel toxins and liver. And they wonder why the health of the population and their fertility and IQ is dropping. Not a surprise. And it's administered by what I call a ghoulish medical mafia, that are basically technicians that are not real artful healthcare providers, because medicine is an art based on science. It is not a science. It is an art based on science. And if you're not both a scientist and an artist, what do you have? You have BS. Pretty bad.
Yeah.
Now, when I give nutraceutical advice, and I tell people, if it's not working, I'll readjust it. I'll give you tests. I'll tell you what blood tests. For example, let's say someone has heart disease. And a typical cardiologist will say, we want to get your lipid analysis. Quest and LabCorp all do what's called nuclear magnetic spectroscopy. The real goal is to enter if you're a cardiac investigator, like I was working with Dr. Moskovitz in the late 70s, and a cardiologist at my office in Denver working using a non-Newtonian fluid dynamic laser blood viscometer, which is I call a Realogics device. We would measure what's called the blood electrophoresis. And most people don't even realize what causes heart disease. When I explain specifically in biochemical terms what causes each illness, for example, Lyme and Lyme-like parasites, etc., triggering off multiple sclerosis and what's called immune homology, I can prove it. People say, no, you can't prove that. I said, well, sorry, you talked to the wrong doctor. I can. I know the advanced immunology labs that can actually do it. When people say, how do you get our blood vessel disease? We've had Dr. Broughton, who's a British biochemist, has worked at antibody assay reference labs in Santa Ana, California. For years, I've ordered tests where you can measure antibodies against 9-noronyl hydroxycholesterol and antibodies and free radical levels, including T-bars and oxidative DNA adduct of guanosine, that shows you precisely what causes heart disease. We know what it causes heart disease. What are they talking about? But the cardiologists, both of them, don't understand the biochemistry, even the basic biochemistry. All they want to know is how many cardiac caths they can do and how many bypass operations they can do when you screw up because you eat the toxic American diet, GMO foods, etc. Or you take the toxic vaccines that are useless and dangerous and build you up with heavy metals. And the military are still giving mercury amalgams to the veterans in their 20s and 30s and whatever, thinking that vitamin M is okay, but if you spill a mercury manometer in your medical office, it's such a dangerous situation. You have to have people in spacesuits with micro vacuums for days with the place closed off with a balloon around the entire place because the vapor is so dangerous. They have to have Scott air packs. So if I seem a little angry, guess what? I got damn good reason for it. So if out there you think you know better than Dr. Bill, and I got attitude, bring it on. By the way, the protocol I approach is what's called the Power of One's Oxygen. You absolutely must have our Nutrimeds. If you, no matter what else you do, and you don't have to start off with oxygen, hyperbarics for everything. The first step you need is simple things. Vitamin Mineral Max, Minerals Plus. If you want the best overall drink, if you don't want to take vitamins as life support, the next one to add would be Ageless. We have NutriComplete, the most powerful red and green drink, and Glycemix for weight loss. Samethyl is the detox for heavy metals. You need S-adenosylmethionine. We have Immunomax for immunoglobulins to boost your immune system, Immunomax powder, and we have the Nutrimune capsules. We have an amazing array. And as we add other ones, we're working on launching a new one in the next few months that is called Energy Lights. And I'm already trying out the drink, and I have actually a glass of it here on my desk because we have gone through all the development phases of this. You had an important statement on the break, David, about up in Oxnard, California, and on the beaches there. Tell us about it.
Well, recently my wife is a teacher. Some of her students came in who live right there on the beach, and they said to my wife that, well, you know what? We can't play on the beach anymore and dig holes and make sandcastles because we don't know if we're going to dig up a dead seal. Because as soon as they show up, they come out and dig a hole and throw them in it, and we don't know where we can play and where we can dig in the sand anymore.
No, who are the he that are digging up and throwing seals and holes in the beach? Who are doing that?
Public officials.
Right, so what they should be doing is taking them off to the toxicology lab, say at the SeaWorld, and doing tissue analysis for heavy metals and radiotoxins, looking at the wasting that's occurring in seal pups, because there are basically none. We know the orca whales don't sing anymore in the North Pacific Ocean because there's no babies anymore. We know that the starfish and the urchins are falling apart. We know that last week they literally shut down the smelt run in British Columbia, Washington, and Oregon State. And when I hear idiots that try to argue with me and think that they know better about radiotoxicology, marine biology, and radiochemistry, I want to scream. I'm so angry that I don't even have a dialogue of abuse by these maniacs. I don't even get abuse. And I got to tell you out there, if you're a scientist, a marine biologist, a radiochemist, or just a university or high school teacher, if you think you know better than me, I will rip you a new one if you come on the show and say something stupid, but I will probate you and give you a pat on the back if you teach your students and raise things in your city council or in your legislature how bad this is. The entire northern hemisphere being poisoned, and there's major pulses of this radiation striking the southern hemisphere, going down to Brisbane, Australia, and New Zealand. People don't understand what's going on, and there's a direct current carrying from Japan to Ecuador. So if you think going to South America is the ultimate and perfect solution, wrong. It's just going to delay the chiseling of your death certificate on your tombstone. So what's happening is the biosphere is dying, and they're not fixing it because they want a massive reduction in the population, not just of humans, but other living things in the biosphere. And if people think this is a conspiracy theory, you're a moron, and you need to wake up to the smell of coffee. This is not a joke. This is the extinction level event. And the same way as the blocking high in the North Pacific that's blocking the water here, which is why we're going to go on water rationing in California. And some idiot even mentioned that California may only be able to support 500,000 people, not 37.5 million. And I have a friend in New Mexico who told me the same thing. They're water rationing there. If they don't think this is going to be cataclysmic, look at Sao Paulo, Brazil. And look at what's going on in the Pacific Ocean. There's no rookeries down there where the pelicans are down in off of the Baja California, where they actually have their rookeries for the pelicans. Less than 5% of the eggs are actually hatching this spring. Less than 5%. That's not good, is it?
There's normally 1,200 little pelicans in Malibu State Beach Park there, where the ranger actually has it and then monitors it. And this year there was only 12. Right.
What people need to understand is, I can see the forest for the trees, and people. One of the things that makes people, particularly what I call rigid Christians. And again, I'm a Christian, but I'm a Messianic Christian, but I believe in the power of the Most High God, and we have to walk supernaturally, not just naturally. And that means, by the way, using our intellect and our spirit with the full power and force of the Most High. And what I see happening is they don't want me to use the title of, I'm not only a medical doctor and scientist, but I'm speaking prophetically that we are, if we do not repent of pretending that this is not a problem, or believing the media and our scientists and our leaders, America is going to die. And most of the Northern Hemisphere is going to die, because there's American companies that support and keep TEPCO going. TEPCO is a entity created by the United States and Japan. Just like the U.S. has created all these nuclear reactors, they sold $182 billion worth of new nuclear reactors in India. Those are all U.S.-based transnational corporations. So if they screw up in India and kill a lot of people with radiation, which they all release, it's our fault, because our citizens allow politicians to be corrupt enough to let a nuclear industry that's out of control not make dangerous nuclear reactors and hide nuclear fusion technologies, and all of them are released thorium, tritium, and other radioisotopes, and none of them are maintaining proper containment. And they're post-geriatric. All the nuclear reactors pretty well in America are post-geriatric, which means if they were a senior citizen being wheeled around in a wheelchair, they would be put in a striker bed. That's how bad it is.
30 years in the first place.
Right. Yeah, it's very bad. It's very bad. We have another question from James. James, what city or town are you in? You mentioned something really unusual. You said rat lung disease. RAC. Which city are you from, or state?
Yeah, Pearl City.
Which city?
Pearl City, near Pearl Harbor. Harbor.
Oh, Pearl Harbor. Okay, tell us about rat lung disease. What's the story? This sounds like an interesting story.
It's a rat lungworm disease. From the last year, there's no cure for it, and it's spread on raw vegetables, not cleaned well, from small snails and snugs with their slime trails have larvae. Apparently, somewhere it's passed on by rats, and it causes terrible suffering from as long as weeks. Some have died, and had a relative had it, and.
Okay, now do you know what kind of pathogen? Do you know what kind of pathogen this is? Because I'm going to do while we're talking.
Yeah, I didn't have the name. I should have brought it down. Maybe you might have it, but I was thinking maybe something in general of the larvae.
Yeah, here it is. It's rat lungworm disease in Hawaii. Yeah, here I just pulled up the National Library of Medicine on it. And it's called Angiostrongylus catotensis, which is the rat lungworm. It's called rat lungworm. It's actually a worm or parasite or pathogen, right?
Right.
Our let me explain. Okay, the monoatomic Nutrimedical is the most powerful antipathogenic. If you take this by inhalation and orally, you can put it through a Omron inhaler, or better still, a Sinupulse Elite with a little blue clear tip, and you take and put, say, 20 drops to 30 drops in, and inhale that with normal saline 4 times a day, and you take it orally, you'll kill the pathogens off the rat lungworm, which is a strongyloid worm. You can take also Allicin Med, which is going to have the sulfhydryl groups cross-link the worm and kill the pathogens. And we have Silver 100, the only stabilized, thousands of times stronger than silver. We have things to stop what's called a secondary cytokine storm, because when you kill pathogens off, whether it's a virus, mycobacteria, fungi, or spirochete, or something like acidocosis, like budgie disease, you're going to get cytokines released by your immune cells. So you want to take high-dose Power C, 3 capsules of Power C1 full vitamin K2. You want to protect and repair your DNA with ellagic acid and malignant block that repair your DNA damage. You want to stop the free radicals with cell detox, glutathione, Regenerex, which is a genetic stimulant, Regenerex, and Nutritrala. And you can repair the membranes of the lung with Nutrifos, Minerals Plus, and our new form of what's called copper ligate. It's a special form of super copper, and if you call us, we can ship that to you. The problem is that the strongyloid, the regular drugs that doctors are going to give, are extremely toxic for getting rid of strongyloidiasis. So it's very straightforward. If you're washed all your vegetables with ozonated water, drink only clean filtered water from Pure Water System, and use Nutriodine orally and Silver 100 and Allicin Med, the strongyloid parasite cannot affect you.
Yeah, I'd like to spread the word here. There's the medical deities. I don't know if they want to listen, but I'd like to know.
Welcome back. So you got an answer there right away. If you just want to get the one thing, get Nutriodine and start off with that. Take Power C, you don't get a die-off reaction. Those 2 things. You mentioned on the break, Lorraine Murray is recommending evacuation. What people should know, I did a talk back in 2007 with Lorraine Murray at the Vancouver 9/11 Truth Conference. She had previously been on my show a number of times. But what happens is, if a guest or someone, even at a conference, makes a statement that's incorrect, just like there were incorrect statements geopolitically made by Harley Schlanger earlier today or yesterday by Tim Alexander, I will correct them on air. And people need to know they're going to get the full up straight truth. It's not like I'm not like a nice broadcaster on CNN or Fox News or even any other show in this network. I'm not nice. I don't ever want to ascribe to be nice, because niceness means I'm going to slather the truth over with something so that it's digestible, even if it's poisonous to your mind and body. So when Lorraine Murray made statements like evacuating Hawaii, I say the following. Number one, why hasn't she been able to stop them from bombing in the Molokai Island munitions range where they're shooting off depleted uranium? And she herself has taken a detector to see the massive amounts of depleted uranium. I explained in specific terms in 2007 why depleted uranium interferes with chromium and molybdenum, because it's the same place in the periodic table of elements, and which specific enzyme pathways and how you can actually measure them, including the radiotoxin levels in tissues, interfered with directly, which is why you can get a wasting syndrome with depleted uranium. I had one patient of mine back in the 90s that was inside. He was a medic, and he actually pulled someone out of a tank after blue fire hit the Abrams tank, And when the shell bounced around, he was in there for probably, maybe 5 or 6 breaths before he got the man out of there to get hit with this hot shell. And those 5 or 6 breaths were enough to make him lose 90 pounds and die within probably a couple months. And you actually lose weight faster than if you starve to death. And I explained that if it interferes with the molybdenum, it interferes with the enzymes that make neurotransmitters, so you end up with seizure-like activity and depression. It interferes with hexose monophosphate shunts to your cells and tissues waste faster than if you starve to death. So when people, including molybdenum, make statements that are out of their scientific, technical, or other depth, or are logically incorrect, I will correct them. And Loren got very upset at me, just like other broadcasters, including Catherine Albrecht, that won't come back on the program because they make statements that are technically wrong. Now, you need to understand this out there. Dr. Deagle doesn't assume I know everything, but what I do know, I know really well. And I challenge you out there, if you think you know better, please call in and prove me that I'm stupid or wrong, because I want to be. I want to learn, but I want people to realize when I've mastered these things at great pain and suffering, I want you to know that I don't want Hawaii to be evacuated, but here's what I do want. I want them to stop the munitions shooting at Molokai. I want them to sample air and water over the islands. I want them to not only sample those, but also sample the sulfur dioxide, because a lot of people are getting more SO2 than in large cities like Mexico City sulfur dioxide. I want to know what the cesium and radiotoxins like strontium levels are in the local filter feeder fish. Can I get local officials here in California like Senator Feinstein or her so-called nuclear expert to cooperate with me? Absolutely not. And Kai Vetter, the nuclear engineering scientist at UC Berkeley? Absolutely not. At first he tried to blow me off as Dr. Deagle. You're just an MD. I'm Dr. Deagle, the guided intellectual missile coming right at your head. And when I start firing questions, these people, they start to incredible shrinking scientist, doctor, and so-called expert. So I used to hide it. I don't hide it anymore. And if people notice that my attitude, even over the years, has gotten considerably more vicious, of intellectual stupidity and arrogance, and I'm not arrogant, by the way. People need to understand that I am driven because I'm frightened about what I see coming, because I don't see any action, I don't see any intellectual honesty, and I don't see a specific plan to deal with these. Why are they now monitoring the water and air around Hawaiian Islands? Why are they now monitoring the fish and saying at the fish market, does your fish click? Should be the little tagline. And in South Korea, you go to the fish market in South Korea and Seoul, they actually have radiation detectors at the fish market at the bottom of every fish box where the fresh fish are brought in. So, as I tell people, if your radiation detector, your Inspector Plus goes click, click, back away from the fish box. Okay? So, if people detect, say, Dr. Deagle has a particularly bad attitude, tough. Live with it. And heed the fact that, like my ancestor Moses, I am filled with rage that people won't get it. What do you think?
Me?
Yeah, what do you think of my little statement there? There's a justifiable reason why I ranted like this, because I want people to understand I have solutions for health problems. And if you don't have the full solution, I have a pathway so that if you got a stent, you won't get a bypass. If you got a blocked peripheral artery, we can reverse it. If you've got multiple sclerosis, we can remyelinate your neural pathways. If you've got a chronic obstructive lung disease, we can stop your basket cells from expanding and the stealth pathogens from destroying your bronchi and your respiratory bronchioles. If you've got strongyloidiasis, this rat lungworm disease, which is going to kill you, your knucklehead doctors are going to tell you there's no cure, or the cure they want to give you is so damn toxic you're going to need a liver transplant. Now, I got to tell you is I had an opportunity in '97, after I gave my testimony as the director of Ahmed for Pekin Hospital, to join a law firm in Chicago, and they offered me $500,000 a year just to go to law school in Chicago, and the first year out in practice at their law firm, if I'd sign a bonded steel contract with them that's $6 million guaranteed the first year out just to sue the ass off doctors and corporations that were harming people and the public. That's because they knew who Dr. Deagle was in '97 in Illinois. Now, that's why even other broadcasters are terrified of me, because they don't want to bring me on, because they realize they're not going to get a lot of edgewords and edgewise, and if they say something stupid, it's going to be an intellectual vivisection. Because I want you, when you're listening to this program, to get empowered. I don't want you to hear BS. I want you to know that rat lungworm disease does have solutions. I want you to know that they're not doing anything in Hawaii, yet they're also pushing more GMO foods, which the Hawaiian legislature is trying to stop. And you live in Hawaii. Imagine Hawaii. which doesn't have great nutrition anyway. And they want to push more GMO food to destroy the population and their health there, which are very prone to diabetes. How crazy is that? All the population exposed to depleted uranium from MOLOKAI, and now the tailpipe of Fukushima Daiichi, and not monitoring the water and the seafood, which Hawaiians eat tons of seafood, and doing nothing to tell young mothers the reason why you have a deformed baby or you ended up with a disorganized mass of cells instead of a normal child is because you had exposure to biotoxins accumulating from Fukushima Daiichi and from the MOLOKAI depleted uranium. People don't like to hear that stuff. They will say, Dr. Deagle, you shouldn't say that. That's not good manners. Since when have I had good manners? Now, I am a social idiot, and I glory in that, because I will do the right thing. I am a sheepdog for God. If God says, sheepdog, go over and bite that wolf over there because he's going to hurt those sheep, that wolf is dead. I got him by the throat, and he's got his last few chortles before he chokes to death. And I want you to understand this out there, people. There ain't anybody like me anywhere. Period. There isn't. I want more to follow me. I want more people. I want people to support people like Rand Paul. I want Rand to get his campaign going. I want to see America come back to a constitutional, Christian-based republic. And I guess if all the Christians, for example, all the people in Hawaii would stand up, their legislature would make sure that all of those depleted uranium emissions tests would stop. They'd sample the air and water. They'd stop GMO food, just like the legislature in Vermont. And we would have a society that would start looking at the nutraceuticals that would make normal babies with normal IQs, that people wouldn't be getting Obamacare, which basically euthanizes them when they get beyond a certain age, and gives them what I call pre-embalming care, which is really deficient. They call it health care. It shouldn't be called health care. What do they call death care? Let's call it what it is. I mean, I've been through the system so long, I have no misgivings whatsoever about the fact that most doctors are out there, they are magnificent deities. Period. It's cruel, but it's the facts. So what do you think, James? Do you think that's a good plan for Hawaii?
Yes, Hawaii is very liberal. I had a cataract surgery.
It's fragile. Hawaii is a perfect example of a state in America held out on the end of a stick by Obama and the global maniacs that are doing nothing to protect the population. And it's not a matter of evacuating Hawaii. Why don't they stop the mess? If they just put Kevlar tents over every single reactor and over the whole area, if they put a seawall up, if they diverted the water above it, if they put a crystalline boron sarcophagus, which I can tell them how to do with scalar technologies and hyperosmolar boron-nated water, if they use muon identification of where the corium is and they could close off the corium areas using muon and ground-penetrating radar, we could stop this mess. But there's no attempt to do even one step of what I recommended in the book last year, not one. And if people detect that I'm a little angry, I don't even get proper abuse. I don't even get abuse anymore. And I'm angry. Where's my abuse? Prove me wrong out there, you morons, scientists, activists. Prove me. They're letting Hawaii die.
God bless you, all the listeners.